Well, there aren't many slasher franchises that are as big as the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. These movies were really, really popular. But with each movie release that came out, the franchise drifted further and further away from its core of being a horror movie. That's right, a horror movie. Because by the final entries of the franchise, you may mistake Freddy Krueger for being some sort of dark comedian and not a slasher villain.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little souls!
What the fuck is that? That is not a horror movie. With the big remakes being kicked off in the early 2000s by the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, what better time to make a remake of the Nightmare franchise, right? After rewatching all of the original films and hearing every single Nightmare fan tell me that this remake was terrible, I thought it would be a great idea to watch it back. I mean, it can't be that bad, right? This film makes so many decisions that make me just not like it, and it pains me to say that because this film could have been decent, and they played around with the fact that Freddy could have been innocent, but instead decided to confirm him to be a pedophile, which I find super unnecessary, and also kill all the fun in the character. Of course, it's going to be really, really difficult to replace Robert Englund as Freddy. Even in the films where Freddy's serious, there's still kind of like this sadistic charm that he has, and this Freddy just doesn't have that, and it probably doesn't help that Freddy sounds like the heaviest chain smoker of all time.
Your memories are what fuels me.
Like, what the fuck? So yeah, with this Freddy, I feel like in the pursuit of trying to make him scary again, they just turned him into a really boring pedophile. And for reference, I think like most other people, I think the Freddys in the first and the third entries into the franchise are probably the best. But anyways, I'm going to stop this intro and just walk you through this terrible remake and show you why it sucks. Because here is how to ruin a franchise. We open this movie with an establishing shot of Springwood Diner. We see a man ask for more coffee, and it's obvious we're in a dream as he just got completely aired and there is nobody else in the entire restaurant. The man decides to follow the waitress behind the bar and into the kitchen, who proceeds to keep airing him, and we then see pots and pans burning with pig heads in them. We see that he's being stalked by Freddy, but when he turns to look behind him, Freddy's no longer there. Then we get jump scared back into the real world. What else gets brought into the real world? Cut on his hand, establishing that Freddy hurting you in the dream crosses over into the real world. We learn that this guy's called Dean and he meets this girl Chrissy. And after a classic Nightmare on Elm Street conversation of Dean telling Chrissy that these dreams are real, Dean accidentally spills coffee on Chrissy, who then leaves to clean herself up. When alone again, he somehow naps off really quickly and is back in the dream world, where he's attacked by Freddy in a pretty cool kill. As in the real world, we see him holding a knife to his throat before brutally driving it like knife deep into his neck. And we cut to the title card, and that's pretty much the entire opening sequence. As much as it kind of pains me to say, that opening sequence wasn't even that bad. The kill was pretty cool, the tension build up was pretty cool, the jump scare was pretty cool, and the film's letting us know that this Freddy Krueger is no longer a goofball, because that's what he had become in previous entries.
Hey, you forgot the Power Glove!
Freddy had become a fucking goofball.
Now I'm playing with power!
And that's not to say that Goofball Freddy's bad, it's just that it's not very scary. I think trying to make Freddy scary again wasn't a bad idea. However, I don't really have many problems with this opening scene, and I think Robert Englund kind of sums up a lot of the issues with introducing Freddy so early on in the film.
Now, I like the opening of the reboot, but it does cast a pall over the film. Everyone is already tainted by Freddy. There's like a black cloud over the kids already, and I think you kind of need to meet the kids before they're sort of under the shadow of Freddy.
Anyways, after the title card, the rest of the film just turns to straight dog shit. We cut to Dean's funeral, and I already get our first stupid plot moment as Chrissy sees a little girl with slash marks on her clothes throw flowers into his grave before we get jump scared back into being awake. Now, how fucking disrespectful do you have to be to fall asleep at your recently dead boyfriend's funeral? Like, what the fuck? And then you go and talk to your ex-boyfriend Jesse at the fucking funeral whilst looking at some old photos. Oh my god. Hashtag justice for Dean. Anyway, whilst looking at some old photos, it's revealed that she knew Dean when she was a child. Anyway, Jesse just being a fucking douche to Nancy before storming off. Anyways, later on that night, we see Nancy struggling to sleep, and we get this terrible, like, CGI recreation of a good practical effect that we saw in the 1980s film. Like, what the fuck? In the 1980s, they managed to make this look better. Do these characters kind of seem familiar? Does Christy kind of remind you of Tina? Oh wait, that's right, this is a remake. And just to let you know, it's not the original. They're gonna change all names of other characters except Nancy's. Like, why? What? Oh my god, this film. Chrissy is at home and wants to see photos of her when she's a child, and her mum is suspiciously dismissive about it for some reason. As well, I also want to say this whole plot point is really lazy writing. I mean, like, shared amnesia? Like, really? Chrissy decides to go into the garage to look for old photos of her when she is a child. She makes her way to the attic above the garage, and we see a bunch of boxes of photos of her when she's a child, with a creepy doll and that slash dress we saw of that little girl from earlier. It's apparent that we're in a dream, and we actually get a pretty decent jump scare. Anyways, at school, Chrissy's in class and eventually dips into another nightmare. We see Freddy chilling by the chalkboard, and we get some fucking Freddy lines.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class.
before he cuts a lock of her hair off in her dream, which wakes her up screaming in the real world, with a lock of hair also falling into the real world. Now I have to say I've had some pretty embarrassing moments at school, but if that shit happened to me, I'd just fucking change schools at that point. Anyways, after class, Tina runs out into the classroom, and it's revealed she's going to be home alone tonight. We catch her later in her room looking at newspapers of Dean before we get some spooky noises and get jump scared by her ex-boyfriend Jesse climbing through a window. Jesse wants to know what's happening before Chrissy kind of recaps the whole story of Dean. Like, we're only 20 minutes into the film, we don't need a recap, but I guess fucking Jesse does. And he also shares that he's been having the same dream. I mean, knives for fingers thing. We've already done this, guys, like 40 years ago. We cut to night time with Chrissy and Jesse in the same bed together. Bro, what happened to Dean? Hashtag justice for Dean. Anyway, in the middle of the night, Chrissy's woken up and goes out calling for a dog. Eventually, she comes to the corpse of her dog, and guess who's behind this? Motherfucking Freddy, who makes kind of a joke.
I was just petting him.
Back inside, the house turns into a preschool hallways, with the jump rope girl swinging around, until eventually she comes to Freddy counting down from 10. He gets to the end of the countdown and Chrissy thinks the nightmare's over, which obviously it isn't, as we then get a recreation of Tina's death in the original. I don't know why they recreated the death. You guys can't convince me that if you added clown music over this, it wouldn't be funny, alright? I mean, I guess this isn't terrible, but this scene kind of feels like a cheap copy of the original, which it is. This film was literally just made for money. I'm not even lying. All covered in blood, runs out the house and sets off a burglar alarm while doing it. Jesse finds his way into Nancy's house, who acts like a complete schizophrenic, but manages to tell Nancy that if Freddy kills us in a dream, he also kills us in real life. As if I didn't fucking know that already. Oh wait, there was a film released about it in the 1980s. Everybody's already seen this. Before I get people saying, oh, stop comparing this film to the original, I'm gonna compare this to the original. It's literally a remake. Nancy sings this kind of weird song.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Freddy.
And Jesse eventually gets arrested and taken to prison. This kind of urges Nancy to call that guy. Oh, you remember that guy from the opening scene who was kind of just sitting with Jesse? Yeah, well, this is Quentin and he's the main character now. The next day, Quentin's at the library researching sleep deprivation when he sees this like a weird child standing in the bookshelf always. And it becomes apparent that he's in a dream with these effects of the walls shaking. Then a jump scare of Freddy who just kind of turns his head around. Like, what is this? Anyway, back in prison, Jesse's getting out on bail. And he quickly realizes this ain't no bail. This is a fucking dream. As the landscape around him transforms into Freddy's boiler room, which leads him to kind of wander around for a bit until eventually he comes face to face with Freddy. Freddy's trying to be all creepy and shit, and Jesse just runs away. He eventually stops when he comes to some corpses, and we get another knockoff Freddy line before he starts talking about turning back time and shit. I don't know. He then torments Jesse on the floor for a bit before vanishing. We get a pretty gory kill as Freddy stabs him through the chest. Then there's also this pretty brutal moment where Freddy says that brain can function for 7 minutes after the heart stops beating. Not even a bad line for Freddy. Kind of makes him more scary. Anyways, Nancy and Quentin discover this thing called micronaps, where it's basically like after you're awake for 48 hours, you start micro sleeping. Well, I gotta say, like I said earlier, this is a pretty cool addition to the film. I mean, micro sleeps makes Freddy kind of seem even stronger. However, the film definitely oversteps how powerful these micro naps are. Later on, Nancy asks her mother if Freddy's real or not, to which she just blatantly lies for some reason. There's this kind of like James Bond-like shit, where she's like, oh no, Nancy knows. Anyways, Nancy gets in the bath to recreate yet another scene from the original. And I understand this film kind of wants to pay homage to the original, but straight up copying scenes from it just doesn't really do it for me, man. Anyways, Nancy goes to her room and we're still dreaming apparently, as there's a bloody snowstorm in her room and she's now near the preschool that we keep hearing about. Freddy shows up and starts talking about little Nancy, and he kind of seems upset that she doesn't remember him. Goes in for a face lick, bro. Ugh. Anyway, she gets woken up by a phone going off and Quentin tells her that Jesse is dead. Nancy shows Quentin a picture she drew of the preschool in her dreams, so they decide to go searching through Nancy's mum's stuff in her house. They eventually find an old photo with them all in, and Nancy's mum finds them going through all her stuff, and we get this really weird shouty moment, and I can totally relate to Quentin. Like, you guys remember when you're around your friend's house and your friend's parents are shouting at your friend and you're just kind of standing in the background? Like, that was literally me back in the day. Anyways, we get Freddy's backstory, and apparently Freddy liked Nancy the most. These dreams are kind of happening as repressed memories. I mean, come on guys, repressed amnesia? Man, I don't remember that in the original. Oh, maybe because it didn't need to be there. I guess it kind of makes sense. Anyways, Nancy and Quentin try to leave Nancy's house to look for other victims in the photo. I don't know at this point. But Quentin's dad managed to pull up behind him and takes Quentin back into his car. And now we have another scene that I kind of have a problem with. I mean, later on, Quentin is swimming in a swimming pool. All of a sudden, mid-length, he gets pulled underwater. Like, Freddy pulls him from the real world into a dream. I mean, this is bullshit. I'm hoping that this is like a micronap thing. They're trying to use micronaps to explain this, which I think is what they're trying to do. But how's Freddy pulling him underwater? in the real world. The fuck? Mate, Freddy Krueger's powers are not rocket science. He can't just pull people from the waking world into his reality. He's meant to be an opportunist. He waits for characters to slip up before he can go on the offensive. Anyways, this whole scene is just lazy writing for us to hear the rest of Freddy's backstory fully fleshed out. And we see him running away from like a mob of angry parents who are chasing him down, but he gets cornered in like an old building. Parents go full on vigilante and just set the building on fire, but they all decide to do this instead of calling the cops. They didn't even call the police once. They've been hearing about this pedo living in the school. They just decided not to tell the police and just kill himself. Anyways, the nightmare ends with Freddy running out the burning building, which kind of brings Quentin back into the real world. And when Nancy at the same time is looking up other kids from the photo who also died in their sleep, she finds someone's personal blog website. He's logging little video diaries of his experience with Freddy, and we get this. How do you upload that? Quentin finds Nancy and goes to confront the head vigilante boss. He then plays on this idea that Freddy might actually be an innocent man, but for some reason the film decides later on that he's in fact not innocent. So they didn't even know for sure that Freddy was a pedophile. They didn't even find Freddy's cave or whatever, his little pedo dungeon. They didn't even find it. I mean, I guess if you're a parent, I don't understand it from the point of a parent, but I would definitely contact the police or have some pretty sure damning evidence before I burnt someone alive. Anyway, the dynamic duo go to look for the preschool and stop off on the way to get some more pills. We get more micronaps, and I have to say again, they were actually pretty cool addition to this movie. The doctor is refusing to sell Quentin more pills, so Nancy decides to go into the shop to look for him, and we get another micronap scene. And this is what I said about Freddy's powers a little bit overstepped. How is shit flying off the shelves in the real world? How the fuck is Freddy can't do that? Anyway, Quentin takes Nancy into the hospital, and Nancy refuses to go back to sleep. But before the doctors could get Nancy's mum to sign anything, her and Quentin are gone with all the things they need. Quentin takes some adrenaline to keep himself awake, and they continue on their journey into the preschool. Get this gross dialogue.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't exactly fit in.
Get this shit off my screen right now. Anyways, we get a micronap jump scare, which is kind of cool. It's a pretty good jump scare. And they find a preschool and break into it. Snoop around the place, and we get more micro sleep jump scares. And Nancy and Quentin find Freddy's room or cave, whatever. And they confirm Freddy to be a pedophile. I just don't think there was any need for this. The fact he could have been innocent could have been a cool twist and would have made a remake worth it, I guess. But no, he just touches kids now. Thanks. Anyways, Nancy remembers that she can pull Freddy from her dreams into the real world, and Nancy goes to sleep whilst Quentin arms himself up. You already know what that means in the nightmare film. Quentin also naps off to sleep himself and gets beaten up by Freddy, slash in the stomach. But before Freddy can finish the job, he hears Nancy calling out for him. And Freddy finds Nancy and shows her his collection of corpses. Anyway, Nancy runs into another dreamscape and hides in a closet. Yep, that would surely throw off a dream demon who can control your landscape and surroundings. Hiding in a closet, that would surely throw him off. Yeah, we get jump scared and she tries running up the stairs. We get a new take on the toothpaste steps. And another stolen Freddy line. Nancy sinks at the bottom of this goo and falls onto her bed in the dream girl clothing and is pinned down. We get more through gross Freddy lines before he throws Nancy across the room. Nancy starts freaking out and Quentin gets woken up by her screams. Quentin manages to wake her up with an adrenaline pen. Nancy wakes up and pulls Freddy into the real world. A fight scene takes place, and before Freddy can finish Quentin, Nancy slashes his arm off. Before Nancy finally finishes the job, and they burn down the gaff along with Freddy's body and all this fucked up pedo shit. And that's kind of pretty much the whole film. The fire brigade gets called, Quentin gets a medical treatment. We also get this fireman guy talking about the hell's in the body found. That basically means if this film was received positively, they would be able to make another one. And the film ends like this. Yeah, that's pretty much Nightmare on Elm Street. Although I have completely ranted about this horror movie, I don't think it's all bad. Yes, it's not good, but I have definitely seen worse horror movies. And to be honest, I wasn't even that bored watching the movie. That's probably due to its really short runtime. But with that being said, I do think that it fails as a remake. I think that they missed the mark with the characters. The whole shared amnesia thing was such a big part of this movie, and although Freddy's backstory was touched upon briefly in the original, it never dove into this whole shared amnesia thing that they all have, because I think it's kind of stupid. It just focuses so much on the kids when they were young. And yes, that's in the original, but it's nowhere near as focused upon as it is in this film. And to be honest, I definitely think that they completely missed the mark with Freddy Krueger. Trying to make him scary, that was good. But making him an unfunny, pepperoni-looking paedophile was bad. And I also think that they completely overstepped the mark when it came to his powers. This guy cannot pull you from the waking world into a dream. What is that? Anyway, if you're a first-time watcher to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I would recommend you just go and watch the original from the 1980s, and then Dream Warriors, as I like those films the most, like most other Nightmare fans. Yeah, to conclude this video, I think the movie mainly fails as a remake. I don't think the viewing experience would be as bad if I hadn't watched the original one first, but I can imagine that it would be better than when I watched it, because I couldn't help but keep comparing it to the original. So overall, I would give this movie a 4.5 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend it, but I think there are definitely worse horror movies to be watched. If you want to watch it and you like it, that's great. If you like this film, that's cool. I just personally don't. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Take care.